Legacy is what you pass down to your children and to your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone. Many hope to create it. Many more hope to live up to it. Very few ever succeed. The legacy of this show hopes to be about what Westeros means to us, and what we hope it may mean to a new generation of fans, and the generation after that. Boasting discussions that will endure, passions that will rise, debates that will make the small council jealous. With a combined 44 years of experience behind a microphone, the hosts and guest hosts of this show are dedicated to the fans' experience interviewing anything from Westeros, Essos, and beyond. This group is not the House of a Lion, a direwolf, or even a dragon. This is a fraternity, a lineage, a house that endures beyond sigils, and aims to leave a legacy no other podcast has. So it's time to call the Banos, for this is the House of the Empire.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to Westeros, or at least a Westeros mentality, as we talk more Game of Thrones and more House of the Dragon, if you can believe it. Yeah, there's actually still more to discuss. We're several weeks removed from the season finale, but that does not mean that we have run out of things to talk about. And to help us talk about some of those things is a veteran in the podcasting world. We talk about in the intro how there's 44 years of experience behind a microphone. We get to shuffle in some more of that experience here tonight as we talk about season 1 of House of the Dragon and our hopes for season 2. I'm Zach, back for more fun, and as always, here for more fun with me, it's Sean. How are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing. It's going to be a busy night here tonight. I'm loving this show. I'm sad that the show's not gone, but season 1's gone. I'm sad that, barring a miracle, it'll be about a year and a half before we see another season of this show, give or take. And it's tough, but all in all, I'm excited to dive back into the world of Westeros.
Well, and taking the plunge with us, as it were, here to talk about everything from season 1 in a brief recap, and then also to talk about what kind of hopes there may be for what content we'll see in season 2. It's Tommy B. Tommy, how are you tonight?
I am hanging in there, dude. I don't remember if I was on any of our previous episodes. I might have been on one or two. I've loved this show throughout its season 1 run. It was great, as someone who came into Game of Thrones very, very late into that run. This show has been awesome to follow. Every week it's been, I don't want to say something completely different, but it's there's been the twists, there've been the turns. It's felt completely authentic to what we were looking for. And yeah, I am excited for season 2. It's just, quality over quantity, right? But still, it's a shame we gotta wait so long.
Yeah, that's kind of been the MO for Game of Thrones content as we've come to know it. But you mentioned if there were any previous appearances, they've been few and far between, at least here on this podcast specifically dedicated to the show. So why don't we kind of talk about season 1 from your perspective and your vantage point, and get some thoughts from you on the flow of the episodes, the time jump, the character arcs, character development, all that type of stuff. What were some of your initial impressions of this story of the Targaryen era?
So let's see. If I had to pick which section of this story I enjoyed the most. So Rhaenyra, she had 3 actresses, correct? Just 2. Okay.
Sorry, you caught me with a sip of water there. But yeah, we had we had Emma Darcy playing the adult Rhaenyra, and Millie Alcock was the younger version, if I remember.
So
the
if
name.
I had to rank it, I'd say, the third act, if we want to call it that, after the second two time jumps, correct? I'm trying to wrap my mind around
Several
this.
time jumps, but
There were several, like from episode 1 to 2, it was 6 months, and then from like 2 to 3, it was a couple of years, and then like in the middle of the season, we jumped a good 10 plus years.
Yeah.
Like there were several over the
But
course.
then, like, after that major time jump,
Mhm.
there was one more that was a significant amount, correct? And that's when we really see Viserys aged much more.
Yep.
it's here one.
Yep.
Anyway, if I had to kind of rank where things would be, it would of course be that latter couple episodes or so. Then honestly, the first few episodes
Mhm.
and that stretch in the middle is kind of where it's at the tail for me. Not that I thought it was bad. That's just where it ranks on my very 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 rough list. Uh, Watching these characters from afar, of course, grow up, go through these changes, but still having this mantle on their shoulders, existing in these circles, this realm, if you will. Uh, it's definitely different. It's not that it's something we've never. Honestly, the argument could be made we haven't seen this before. Um, Yeah, I don't see any reason to say that we couldn't. I mean, it's number one is it's House Targaryen, and the family dynamics and all they're just completely different from what we experienced in Game of Thrones. It's overall just been an exciting ride. Uh, Seeing the dragons, definitely a boost for it all. Um, and I think that little foreshadowing that really comes to the climax of it, if you will, at the end of the very last episode of the
Mhm.
of the season.
Mhm.
That what was Viserys's line? Uh, the Targaryens think they could control dragons, but they really can't.
The idea that you can control the dragons is an illusion, I believe.
Well,
Yeah,
why don't we pull it up for a second?
The idea that we control the dragons is an illusion. They are a power man should never have trifled with. One that brought Valyria its doom. If we don't mind our own histories, it will do the same to us.
If you ask me, that line, the fact that that's at the end of episode 1, and seeing how episode 10 ends, I don't know how you can criticize the storytelling when they're able to go from start to finish based off that line just in one season. And season 1's just a table setter.
Mhm. Yeah.
excellent foreshadowing by all means. Yeah, they knew what they were doing. Is the best I could. I mean, we could go in circles about this.
Well, there's plenty of circles to go around for sure, because there's certain character arcs that come full circle even in just one season of play. There's different pieces of storytelling like that one that come full circle, and it's fascinating to dissect it the way that we have, because I think if anything, this podcast has really helped me be able to verbalize some of the things that I've felt about the show and be able to take in other people's perspectives to help kind of sharpen and refine my review and my intake, because I'm kind of with you, Tommy, that the latter half of the season was where things started getting really meat and potatoes. But you had to start with bread and milk, which was some of the first couple of episodes, in order to kind of build your way up to it. And so um I think I probably didn't have as great of a review of some of the first few episodes. The first one I did, and then like 2, 3, 4, I probably ended up criticizing the most. But then when we got to about 7, 8, 9, 10, I was full on hooked. This felt like 100% Game of Thrones to me. And like you said, Sean, being a table setter, being an appetizer for the main course that's going to be the future seasons, I think it lays a really, really good foundation.
For sure. I mean, foundation's important. If you don't have a solid foundation to begin with, it's really, really hard to recover after that.
Hmm.
Couple of quick housekeeping items. First, if you're missing the show already, I think Zach has this too. Pick up the Rise of the Dragon book, available at I think all
Oh,
major
yeah, it's on one of my coffee tables.
bookstores.
I
Uh,
didn't pick it up. I should have put it like right over here, but I didn't. It's
it
on the
is
other end
like
of the living room.
the artwork in this thing is beautiful. The story that it tells is incredible. I've gotten into a bit of it so far. Definitely a great companion. If they do one of those, I don't know if they intend to do one of those for every season, but that's one hell of a companion book. Highly recommend it. And also, and more importantly, the guy that makes this show possible. Big thanks to our sponsor, Jesse, with Bunce Force Trauma. Without Jesse, we wouldn't be able to do this show going forward. Although I want everybody to keep in mind the episodes could be significantly shorter, but possibly more frequent at times going forward. Like you're definitely going to see some 25 and 30-minute episodes, even some 15-minute episodes here and there. I know Zach will be back once a month, and I know Kieran's schedule's in flux, but we'll also have some shorter videos coming out for that. Although there's a strong possibility the shorter, like 5-6 minute lore videos might be on their own YouTube channel. So definitely floating that idea around there. But big thanks to Jesse.
Yeah.
Check out what he's got going on. Bunce Forest Trauma, Tasty Treat Master at yahoo.com, soundcloud.com/Bunce Forest Trauma, and Facebook/Bunce Force Trauma.
We have a title sponsor. That's awesome. The only time I ever did that was for my football broadcasts, but unfortunately, football season ended 2 days ago. So I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with my life now. I guess I got to get ready for the holiday season because that's right around the corner, and I have bought all the one gift. So I gotta get on
Thank you, man. It's so appreciated.
that. Yeah, it's on its way, dude, for sure.
I don't buy things until December. Thank you. We don't need that kind of judgment that we need to pregame the shopping before Thanksgiving.
I'm just not a believer in Black Friday deals. I think it's a scam. I
Well,
think
Black Friday deals are now a myth because all those sales are on all month long.
It's like
Unless you live in
I'm hearing it.
Canada,
I'm hearing it on the
where
radio
Black
already,
Friday is
being
myth,
like,
apparently.
Black Friday deals are starting this Monday, and I'm like, well, that's not Black Friday then. That's White People Tuesday. I don't know what, but it's just it's not what you market it to be anymore. So, I have just gotten a little bit more intentional about trying to stay on top of things because there's like people who have birthdays in November and December also. And so if I get behind on that and then I get behind on Christmas stuff, then I end up doing what I did a couple of years ago. And I had to go out on December 23rd, I think it was. It wasn't Christmas Eve, it was like the 23rd.
Ew. Why
And
would you do that to yourself?
because I didn't do it in advance. If I don't do it like this month and a half out, then I end up procrastinating the shit out of everything and having to do it like 2 days before. So there's no middle ground for me. It's either or. So it's cool that we got Jesse on board with these things because yeah, I'm going to be available for patron exclusive episodes that we'll be doing semi regularly, and then there's a lot of stuff from those books that Sean was talking about. There's a lot of stuff that kind of is from the novelizations that maybe didn't get talked about in the show, didn't get addressed, and so we'll try to like fill in the gaps and stuff and provide as much content as we can until season 2 comes out. But this isn't just a House of the Dragon podcast. If one of these other shows ends up happening, like if Snow ends up releasing before House of the Dragon does, then guess what? We're talking about Snow. I know you're making funny faces over there, Sean, but I'm just saying hypothetically, if something else happens before House of the Dragon season 2, this is a House of the Empire. This is a Game of Thrones show, and so we'll have plenty of stuff out there for y'all, whether it's for this particular show or not.
I think without going down too far of a rabbit hole here, I think if you think House of the Dragon season 2 is coming sometime in spring 2024, there's a chance we might get snow by fall 2024, but I'd be looking at late 2024, early 2025 for that.
Mhm.
We'll have to see what happens though. I mean, who knows? There's no guarantee it even goes off.
Well, okay, let's say we get season 2 of House of the Dragon, and then while we're waiting for season 3, those interims, those gaps, there's still plenty of stuff out there to talk about. So
Sure.
great opportunities, and they're all made possible by folks like Buns Force Drama. So
I'm
that's
quite
how we bring it home.
quite positive we'll be talking about those two shows before we're talking about another George R.R. Martin book in the main series of books.
Oh yeah. I have attested for years now that when he says the book is like 60% done, 70% done, whatever, I think he's already finished it, and he's not releasing it until after he dies. He's got it set up for that book to release posthumously, because then you can't criticize a dead person. Or if you do, he's not around to hear your criticisms. I think he's done. And he's not going to release it until after he doesn't have to put up with people's bullshit anymore. He'll be like, all right, I'm dead. Here's the story. Good luck. I'm done. So
Yeah, I think that's a possibility.
that's been my
I think
work.
you're a little more hopeful in humanity than you should be. Nobody will criticize a dead person. Come on.
That's true.
Probably.
Sick bastards. I find myself, before we dive into season 2 here, I find myself like I have the urge to go back and watch season 1 of House of the Dragon again. And the truth is, I will probably watch season 1 of that before I go back and rewatch Game of Thrones. I'm really curious to see how I feel about the show, watching 10 episodes in the span of like 2 weeks rather than 10 episodes in the span of 10 weeks. And I do think recency bias is a thing, and it crops its ugly head up at times. And I'm sure I will be guilty of a little bit of that, but I'm really curious how I'll feel about this show when I start my rewatch, which I don't think it's going to be too long from now. Probably either towards the end of the year or the beginning of next year.
I think what's interesting about this show is the rewatchability factor is fairly high, just because of how contained the storyline is. It's essentially a couple of families versus another couple of families. In Game of Thrones, you're jumping around from scene to scene, from piece of the world to piece of the world, and you get lost with characters and you get lost with their purpose and their drive. With this, it's a rivalry, and it's just team A, team B. What's going to happen between these important players, and that's it. And so it's a little bit easier to dive back into it. It's a little bit easier to be engaged in the process, just because of the type of story that it's trying to tell compared to its predecessor, its counterpart. So I'm curious to see what you feel the rewatchability factor is, because that is something that we take into account with Game of Thrones and with other things that we reviewed here on Phantom Empire. Like, I think it's pretty safe to say, based on audiences' receptions, that Halloween Ends has a horrible rewatchability factor, and that plays largely into how people perceive that entire franchise, not just that movie. And so rewatchability is definitely something that has to be accounted for. Tommy, I don't know if we've gotten to ask you this question directly outright. Are you Team Green or Team Black based on season 1?
Black.
Yeah, okay. You hesitated there. You made me nervous a little bit there.
Yeah.
And what's really funny is, correct me if I'm wrong, fellas, but I haven't really seen very many people be Team Green. Have y'all seen very many Team Green people on social media? I feel like most of it's for Rhaenyra.
I think there is some Team Green on social media, but in terms of like the people that I know, it's all Team Black.
I
Yeah,
feel like the show is really portrayed in such a way to make it hard to be Team Green, honestly.
yeah, because they come across so underhanded. They come across so manipulative. They come across as taking away the birthright of a prestigious family member. So, yeah, I get that, and I think that's part of what makes season 2 so intriguing. Is they've they've succeeded more or less. They have succeeded in stealing the birthright. They have succeeded in kind of supplanting the crown now that Viserys is gone. And what is going to take place now? Episode 10 was a gathering of the allies, and then a really, really big moment that we all have seen or have seen vicariously through Twitter or what have you. And it's the breaking point. It's the straw that breaks the camel's back, or the dragon's back, if you will. And it's the one that means war has begun. And what I love so much about the end of the season is you don't need the words to tell you that war has begun. Rhaenyra's just able to present that to you with just a look, and the nonverbal aspect of what season 2 is being precluded by is awesome.
I mean, that look at the end is I mean, it's chilling. It's utterly chilling.
Your other half is in the chat kind of trolling us, maybe? Or is she truly Team Green? Because she says she's Team Green. Like, is she just having a go at us, or has she really been siding with Allison Otto this whole ride?
You never know with her. I don't know. I don't know.
You're being delicate so you don't end up on the couch tonight, is what you're doing.
Well, I mean,
Oh man, I get it. But if that really is the case, then she's like literally the only person I know that is actually Team Green, which is kind
I
of
don't
crazy.
think she's Team Green. I think she's having some fun with us, but I could be wrong.
Allison and
that's-
Otto were fun to watch by
Mhm.
all means,
Yeah, for sure.
but I would hesitate to say that I think anywhere resembling even close to equal as the blacks is it's a fantasy. I know nobody who like, oh damn Targaryens, they gotta go down, Rhaenyra, usurp ya. Yeah, I don't see it. Just do not see it.
So let me ask you guys this. If there's one thing you want more than anything for season 2, one thing that you really want to see the show do, could be anything, what would be at the absolute top of your list?
So I
Mhm.
actually have like a handwritten list. I'm gonna read.
Nice.
Well, somebody's prepared.
I was eating dinner right up until Sean hit go on this episode. I have not been prepared in the slightest. I got leftovers sitting 6 inches in front of me. But literally at the top of my list, and I know it's going to happen because of the behind the scenes and just what's next in the storyline. I know this is going to happen, but at the top of my list, y'all have seen me wearing this hat the entire duration of this podcast. More House Stark. I need more Starks in my life. And we're going to get Cregan, who is the new heir of Winterfell. And from what I have read up on, Cregan plays a pretty pivotal role in the Dance of Dragons. And I'm looking forward to seeing more Starks. But that is at the very, very top of my list. And right underneath it, I've just got one little line that says Dragons versus Dragons. I loved the Vagar and Arax sequence, but I want two dragons that are a little bit closer in size next time. And I want like an evenly matched like jousting battle, but instead of spikes, it's flames coming at each other. I want like a legit dragon versus dragon battle. So those are two of the big things that I'm hoping for, but I've got a list of other things I'm going to rattle off eventually.
Those are big things. Big things. Stark would be up there on my list too. For me, the most important thing is I want to see more locations. Like we were pretty grounded in
Yeah.
season 1. We know we're getting Winterfell, so just to be back there is going to be a ton of fun. It'll be cool to pick apart how much different it might look from the original show. Now, roughly 140 years or so away from that time. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. You got to know there's going to be some differences, but for the most part, it's probably going to look and feel like Winterfell, much like King's Landing looks and feels like King's Landing. So I'm excited to see what other exotic locations we might see with the show. It's always going to be a little more grounded than Game of Thrones was, but they have teased going to new locations.
I think we're going to see Dorne, and I think we're going to see the Reach. I think we'll see. I think we're definitely going to see the Riverlands. There's some big stuff surrounding House Tully that takes place during this war. So I think variety of locations is definitely in store.
Tommy, how about you, man?
Hopes for season 2.
So it might be a little unrealistic to think about, mind you. I haven't read Fire and Blood. Not that that is, transcript of everything that is to come, of course. But I'd really like to see, instead of just jumping to the next sequence, I'd like to see a journey of some kind, a little more time on the road. I mean, granted, we're dealing with the riches here. They don't have to want. I mean, that may change depending on the circumstances. Especially as open warfare begins. That's just something I felt a little wanting of, if you will, when I was watching season 1, and as I think back to it. If we saw, a faction going somewhere, we didn't really see much of that journey there. We kind of just jumped there.
A lot of journeying in season 1 transpires on Dragonback. Just boom, you're in one place. Boom, you're in the next. Boom, you're on a ship, and boom, you're back at King's Landing. Like, there were a lot of skips that happened for sure.
Let me just point out that I've never, until I really started to pay attention to the maps here recently and figured out the geography to everywhere. King's Landing is way closer to Dragonstone than I ever thought it was, like in the original show, considering how they talk about it.
Mm-hmm. It's like Dragonstone's just outside the bay a little bit, isn't it? Like Blackwater Bay has King's Landing at the bottom part of the sea, and then at the open part of the sea leading out to the narrow sea. I keep saying sea a lot. I'm talking like a letter C, like that.
C.
C. What am I talking about? Yeah. at the base of the letter C is King's Landing, and then just outside here, close to the ocean on the other edge of the bay, is Dragonstone. So it's really not that far.
I think it's only supposed to be like a day by boat or something, a day or two. So
yeah.
Another thing, I don't know what relevance it would have, but just because it's been mentioned, what would the Night's Watch look like during this time? It has been mentioned in the show once or twice, or in the season once or twice. Just curious. I have no idea how it would be incorporated. I don't really think they could play any major role, but it would be something interesting to see, if only briefly.
Oh man, yeah, I can't go to territories where I want to go right now. I think there's an opportunity to go beyond the wall in the show. It just depends how much they're willing to stay away from the books. I do think we'll see the wall at some point, though. I think it's just inevitable.
So a couple of other points that I'm hoping to see for season 2, if I may get into two more of my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got 7 points, things that I'm hoping to see in season 2. Some of them are guaranteed, some of them are realistic, some of them are probably not very realistic. But I'm hoping to see more ship to ship warfare. We see a lot of stuff in the middle of the season involving the battles at the Stepstones, but a lot of that took place on the actual islands, or it was stuff that would preluded or stuff that happened after it. I want to see medieval ships line up against each other and fling fiery arrows like the galleons of old would do, because we're not even to like the age of pirates where you would line up side by side and fire cannons at each other. Like, we're not even to that point yet. I don't think they have cannons. So this is like carrying a portable scorpion and shooting flaming arrows at each other, trying to light your sails on fire. I want to see what makes the Valarians such a formidable fleet outside of their numbers. I want to see what makes them such a imposing presence on the ocean. And as such, I want to see them go up against another seafaring power and win. So I want to see them fight the Lannister fleet. I want to see them maybe even fight the Greyjoys. I want some other house with naval prowess to take on the Valarians and lose. That's something I would like to see in season 2.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. I do think the ability to. I'm pretty sure there is a big sea battle coming. But the ability to shoot it in terms of how they shot their ship stuff in season 1, they used the volume. There's ways you could, or their version of the volume anyway. There's ways that you could do that and have a couple of big ships beside one another and have like this massive stagecraft screen going above you, where the dragon stuff that's happening above you can be projected above you as you're doing the stuff that's down on both boats. So I honestly think that's probably easier than some of the location shooting that they do. So they have the potential to do it. I just imagine it would take a hell of a long time in post to clean up.
I think it'd be worth it. I think it would be something that we haven't seen in Game of Thrones before. It's something we haven't seen in Westeros before. And I mean, we saw a little bit of it in the final season, I guess, and maybe in a little bit of season 7 with Yara Greyjoy fighting her uncle. But there hasn't been a whole lot of naval battles. And being someone who really loves the ocean, who loves sharks and stuff like that, I want to see some stuff transpire on the ocean. And how do dragons play into that? How do dragons burning up ships and burning up fleets play a part in the warfare? Because we've seen examples of Drogon burning up the Lannisters when it's a ground assault. How do dragons play into naval assaults, or do they? So I think that's something I'd really like to see. And then this is just a question that I'll pose to y'all. This is very low priority. This is actually the very last thing that I wrote, but it's something that I'm curious about. Do you think we get to see Laenor in season 2? I think he was written out of the show for a good reason. Like, he wasn't killed off; he was just written out. But is he going to be one of those, semi-recurring characters, or is he going to pull an Uncle Benjen and not show up until like 2 or 3 or 4 seasons later?
I think it'll be Uncle Benjen. I think he's basically the season's Uncle Benjen. Or the show's Uncle Benjen, rather.
Tommy, do you see Laenor coming back next season, or are we going to be waiting a bit longer for his return?
I agree. I don't see it as being unreasonable to think he's just going to show up later down the line.
But probably not season 2.
Probably not season 2. Heck, I could be wrong.
And that's why I put it very low on the list, because that was just one piece of storyline that I was really intrigued by. And I was appreciative that they took the time to like actually give him an out, rather than just kill him off. Like, knowing Game of Thrones writing and storytelling the way that we do, I don't believe that was an accident. So I think it's just a matter of when, not a matter of if. Might be season 2, but I think the general consensus is it could be season 3, season 4 before Lenor even sniffs at coming back for any reason at all.
Yeah, I think if you anybody who's putting the expectation on seeing him next season, I think is probably getting ahead of themselves. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. But we're away from book territory with him, right? So like they could bring him
Right.
back whenever the hell they want. So
Right.
who knows in that regard? He just seems like he'd be a good guy to bring back in late. So
Yeah.
and have a significant impact on things too.
Yeah,
So,
I think it could be one of those situations where maybe there's some sort of a battle transpiring, and then a Pentosi fleet just ends up landing, and it's being commandered by Laenor and Sir Carl.
that'd
Like,
be cool.
like certain doom is befalling Rhaenyra's fleet, and just out of nowhere, in a battle of fleet versus fleet, like a third group of ships comes in, and you have no idea who they are or whose banners they're flying, and then Laenor just kind of swoops in because he's Valarian, so he would be a good naval commander, even if he was a dragon rider. I think he could show up and like turn the tides, if you'll pardon the pun, of a certain naval engagement that could happen somewhere down the line.
I think he'd be a great candidate for that. I do think people need to prepare, though, not yet, but by the end of this thing, to see a lot of Valerians die, like because they
Mhm.
have to. They basically have to get wiped off the face of Westeros.
Well, their power now is nowhere near what their power is going to be by the time we see Game of Thrones. Because I believe they are one of the smaller houses that like declares for Renly and then ends up declaring for Stannis after Renly is killed.
Are they still around then? I thought they were gone completely at that point.
I believe I read somewhere, maybe it was a piece of dialogue from the books. I don't know if it was mentioned in the show itself. But I believe House Velaryon does declare for one of the Baratheon brothers at some point during Game of Thrones.
I did a very quick Google search, and I was just thinking the same question myself: were the Valarians still around during Game of Thrones? And I was seeing some names, so I think they are. Yes.
So they're not completely wiped out, but their influence, particularly when it comes to naval prowess, is definitely reduced. So probably not as big a player. And I mean, we see that a lot in this show because, like, the Hightowers, you hardly see anything from the Hightower family by the time Game of Thrones comes around. And Otto Hightower is the hand of the freaking king. So I think that's one of the other interesting things is watching the decline of certain houses that we know are going to be in decline by the time other shows come along.
Jade says, I think the only reason they kept him alive is to gain more sympathy for uh,
For what
Rhaenyra. Maybe she is Team Green. Uh, instead of all of us being like, wait, she just offed her husband for her to fuck her uncle, instead of being like, oh, she let him live with his live with the man he loves. I mean, the way it happens in the book in no way paints Rhaenyra or Daemon in a good light.
No, it really doesn't. And honestly, changing the storyline even that little bit makes her a more sympathetic character in certain respects. So
for sure.
it's really interesting the way like the choices that they've made for this first season and how it's going to shape our perception of the characters moving forward.
We only have a few minutes left here, guys. So one thing I want to know from you guys before we go is what character do you want to see more of in season 2 the most?
I've got kind of a wild card answer, but I'm going to yield it to Tommy first before I give my answer.
What was the other son? So we got Luke.
Jace.
Viserys.
Luke got aided. So we got Jace. Okay.
Who you're definitely going to see more of.
We're gonna definitely see more of him. I mean, that's kind of where I'm thinking more about now because there just hasn't been a whole lot of development. There's fertile ground, so I'll be looking forward to it.
I think Corliss is a given for me. I want to see more of him. Obviously, he's in his later years now, but
Yeah.
every time Steve Toussaint's on screen, I thought he had a commanding presence and always enjoyed the scenes he was in.
Yep.
But I think the one that stands out for me the most, and I mean, there's some people just like, well, I want to see more of Damon, and and to extent, I could see some of that because Damon was in very few episodes at times. And wow, I've just completely lost my train of thought in terms of who my character was. So Zach, who do you want to see more of?
Well, it's kind of funny that Tommy mentioned Jace because mine's in a very similar area. If I'm being honest, one of my other bullet points that I put was a question. It was in the form of a question, and it says, "What happens to Reyna now that Lucerys is dead? She was betrothed through an alliance, and her betrothed is now gone. Does she become stronger for it, like her mother often did in the face of adversity? Or does she kind of collapse from it? Does she become another alliance pawn that gets betrothed to someone else somewhere else for some other purpose? I don't know a whole lot about Reyna's story, but I think she still has a role to play because everybody's going to be like, more Rhaenyra, more Damon. Like, obviously, we're going to get those. Like, that's, like you said, that's a given. But Reyna is one that is of particular interest to me because I want to see how she responds to losing her betrothed and how she ends up responding if her grandfather or her father tries to make her a political pawn to someone else. Like, is she going to embrace it as willingly as she was a crown prince? Or is she going to try to become like her own independent person?
Um, I think she'll be incredibly compelling to watch, and I just remembered who mine was. Mine's Aemond.
One Eyed Aemond. Yeah.
Yeah, I once they made the change to the final actor there,
Mhm.
uh, his presence on screen is fantastic. I'm not saying I didn't buy into the character prior, like like when Eamon claims oh my god, help me out here, guys. The dragon there.
Vagar?
Agar, that's it. Kept wanting to say Rhaegar, but no, that's wrong dragon. Vagar, yeah. I'm not saying I didn't dig that. It was cool and all, but once they made the change to this guy, his commanding on-screen presence, I thought the way that he played him too throughout the 3 episodes we seen him in was every time he was on screen, my eyes were glued to him. We seen a little bit of the victim, we seen a little bit of his just awkwardness, and then we seen the villain side. And I just think whenever he's on screen, it's probably going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I did like Aemond particularly in the last 2 episodes when he makes the strong boys reference and then the sequence with Vagar. He's definitely going to have a big role to play, and I think he's going to get even more lines and even more really great interactions down the line. So I think that's one of the other cool things about this show is how well cast it is and how we can have so many expectations from even the secondary characters. It's like, oh yeah, it's a given we're going to get these primary characters back, but what about the secondary characters? I want to see their storylines. There's not a whole lot of shows where somebody can get that excited over secondary characters, but House of the Dragon is definitely one of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's one of my things I loved about Game of Thrones. It's like, oh, here's this guy that doesn't do much. Then, oh, wait, all of a sudden he has this massive arc out of nowhere, and maybe I should have been paying attention to him. And there's definitely a lot of that in House of the Dragon that we don't really catch because we're jumping too much
Hmm.
at times. But there's Eric and Arik are in more episodes than people think. You just got to be looking around in the background and what's going on around.
I've been thinking about that myself. The more I've seen the characters, mentioned online, it's like, how often do these characters actually appear? Did I not notice? Did I miss something? And then lo and behold, I mean, I haven't gone back and watched all the episodes again, but that's what I've been hearing. They're there. You just don't know. You don't notice.
Well, it's going to be time to notice. And it's also time to wrap things up because there's some other really cool stuff happening on this channel. And this was a live broadcast. And there's going to be another one right after this that you're definitely going to want to tune into. So I'm going to go ahead and give final thoughts as we make preparations for the reunion show of Star Wars Wastelands. That's right. It's back, baby, with the original cast of Star Wars Wastelands back for some more fun. So be sure to tune into all that. Tommy, thanks so much for hopping on for these 45 minutes. I know it was a brief episode, but it was a fun one, and it was great getting to talk House of the Dragon with you.
For sure, it was great.
Mostly just doing stuff with this channel behind the scenes, right? Or is there something else that you would like to give a plug to real quick?
Nah. Phantom Empire is where I am. Folks know me, especially when we got problems, because I'm usually the one they talk to.
Oh, you got trouble. Trouble with a capital T in that rhyme. That stands for Tommy. Okay.
Tommy and I have a Patreon show that's starting here in the next week or so called Fandom Face Off. It's our new $5 tier where we take something from one fandom and pit it against something from another fandom and talk about, hey, what's better? What are the true fandoms? Kidding on that one.
Me. I am the true fan.
Tommy wants his true fan card.
Uh-oh. Quick with the clicks, are you tonight, Sean? That'll make the next episode really fun.
There's a bunch of stuff loaded for that one.
I'll be tuned into the chat for that one. I mentioned at the top of the show that my stuff's kind of on its tail end right now. I was doing high school football broadcasting for a local team, and they got knocked out of the first round of the playoffs. So it's mostly just IPC right now, and IPC is even only monthly right now. So just hit me up on socials at Zach the Voice and see where I'll be next. Maybe I'll be doing an XFL podcast since they're doing the draft this week. So you never know with me.
Yeah, I think we'll probably, Zach and I haven't talked about it yet, but we've got some of the same pieces of Westeros literature here recently, and you might hear us in small little videos. We might use that recording time to record, 4 or 5 little lore videos and put them out separately. Again, though, I don't think you'll hear that on this channel. I think I really want to move that over to its own channel. But I don't know, be on the lookout for that.
Be on the lookout for that and be on the lookout for all the other programming that goes on here on the Phantom Empire channel. The best way to do that is to just hit that subscribe button and be sure to hit like on this video so that you get other videos similar to this popping up in your feed from time to time. But I know that we are crunched for time right now, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode so we can get ready for the one that is on the flippity flip here. For Tommy and Sean, I'm Zach saying thanks for tuning in to this episode of House of the Empire, Season 1 thoughts and Season 2 hopes. And there's still a whole lot more House of the Dragon left to talk about, but it'll have to happen on another episode of House of the Empire. So we're going to say so long for now, and we'll see you next time when the Empire returns.
The idea that we control the dragons is an illusion. They are a power men should never have trifled with. One that brought Valyria its doom. If we don't mind our own histories, it will do the same to us.